Welcome to River Talk for the week of April 28th, 2015. My name is Emily Legel, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts
Joe Wendel, Chaston,
Adrian Baker.
Today we will be talking about the war on drugs. However, before we start, I just want to repeat our disclaimer. Any and all opinions expressed on today's podcast are those of the speaker and not those of Clinton Community College or the Eastern Iowa Community College districts. Do you want to start, Jeff?
Okay. My opinion on...
Do you want to introduce it a little bit? Just
okay.
so people, just in case.
Yeah.
So, for our drug war, we've been waging, this incredibly expensive war on the illegal drugs that have been coming into our country from Mexico and all the other places around the world. My opinion, without going into too many details so we can get everyone's right off the bat, would be that I would be in favor of legalization of drugs similar to what Portugal did in 2001, which would be legalization of marijuana, cocaine, LSD, and other illicit drugs that are illegal currently.
I was going to say that the war on drugs is pretty much a farce, and but I have had a lot of people I know who have their lives destroyed by drug use, drug habits. So.
And you?
Personally, I would have to say that although I did not know about that until very recently, in my personal experience with the drug trade and all the problems that spiral and snowball from the effects of that, I do agree with it because growing up in Chicago as I did, I've seen the effects of these things firsthand. We've been fighting a war against drugs, spending at this point probably millions of dollars of it, decades, manpower and people losing their lives for something that's basically, we haven't gained any traction, we've gone nowhere with it. If we were to legalize these substances, it might seem like a morally bankrupt thing to do, but in the end, you cut off the income of the people making the benefit from it. They have less power over their turfs. People are less willing to follow them because they're not getting money as a result of the spread of the income of the drugs and the money that come from it. You can limit the violence of it due to the lack of manpower, lack of weapons coming in, trafficking, that all comes from the drugs that they use. And then as a result, you might end up seeing people, you won't have as big a loss of life, and people won't see their lives uprooted by this as much as we have in recent years. We've been fighting it, we just haven't gone anywhere. That's not something that we touch on a lot.
Okay. I kind of see where you guys are going. I'm just going to bring in an interview from the Washington Post to give us some background on the war on drugs. And according to this April 30th, 2013 interview on the Wonk blog from the Washington Post, I'll post a link with the podcast. Congress started fighting the war on drugs, in the 1930s when heroin was somewhat legal. It started to enforce it more during the 1950s, and in 1973 the Marijuana Tax Act was incorporated, and soon
It was made a Schedule I drug then.
Yeah.
Didn't we have a war on poverty too?
That's the topic for a different day.
Oh, just like saying we're going to war against ideologies or like non-political states.
Well, I think that there's a entire mentality that we have a war on a lot of things. Like, it is the war mentality. Hey.
Can I finish? Since the inaction of the war on drugs, states have been passing mandatory minimum sentences for possessions of even small amounts of substances such as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and other, I think, methamphetamines as well.
I was going to say, it seems like the war on drugs, it's only where it only takes place where it's acceptable, but politically acceptable. I mean, look at the abuse of pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, and you get back to heroin. Heroin was originally developed for pharmaceutical purposes.
Yeah, I think that
I mean, pharmaceutical drug abuse is one of the biggest things in the country, and that's why I say my grandma's had a reoccurring problem with that. But if you legalize all drugs, would you legalize prescription drugs too?
I would believe, yes, I would legalize prescription drugs and hope that people would be smart enough to make wise personal choices for themselves.
I just want to add that more than half of the prisoners serving sentences of more than a year in federal facilities as of 2001 and to 2013 were convicted of drug offenses. It's a pretty big war when you consider the number of people in prison because of it.
September 30th, 2013, 51% of federal prison population were in prison for possession, trafficking, and other drug crimes.
And this is according to Get the Facts, Drug War Facts.
But that's not even the tip of the iceberg. You have all the people like gang violence, all the people that make money trafficking indirectly, the human trafficking options, the...
Adrian, you kind of have a bit of a background in this. You want to explain what you saw in your community before you moved out here?
All right, I've only been living here for coming close to 2 years now, and having spent pretty much the rest of my life in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, that these trends seem to spread in. My personal opinion, I've grown up with people who are my age. I'm 20 years old now. I could go back to my hometown now after being gone for 2 years and find out that most of them are in jail, mostly for drug-related charges, or dead for the same reason. It's sad that a young adult male from Chicago is considered a miracle if he got out of that place alive. It's ridiculous. I've had people who I've grown up close to, I'm not going to say any names, but people as close to me as a mother's boyfriend or a second cousin who has gang affiliations based on the drugs that they can actually get out to people. I've been personally taught at a young age how you can get away with discreetly handing a product over to a buyer. And when you go there, it'll be as simple as walking down the street, you see a car pull up beside you, and you'll find a guy, most likely hooded, walk up to the car, have a nice little chat with the guy, they shake hands, and you can tell, oh, well, that was a deal just going down. And you realize from that the simple seizing of these products and arresting people for minute traces of it really doesn't get you anywhere. These are things, most of these drugs are things that people can make in their own homes. I've actually seen it happen in my own personal kitchen at a young age. This stuff happening, and while I was powerless to do anything about it then, it makes you see the futility of it as we're going about doing this right now.
What do you think about the way that these drugs are illegal? Do you think that's contributed to the problems? I mean, I'm just looking at Colorado. They recently legalized pot for recreational purposes as well as medical, and not only has their tax income gone up exponentially, but the state's actually doing better in a way than it was before. What would the illegalness affect on your community?
I would honestly say it being illegal would have one of the effects of, since the state can't actually benefit from it with it being illegal, that leaves more room for the criminals, the guys underground, to make a profit out of it. You have these people who can't get it by normal means. They have to get it under the counter. There's always going to be a supplier who's willing to give them what the law will not. And as a result, they can make the prices what they want. They can have complete control over it. And as a result, just like I brought up earlier, their income skyrockets. So they can do more. And then there's the fact that I personally think that there is some innate feeling about doing something that's below the law, something that is considered illegal on such a basic level that a person will be driven to do that in some way, shape, or form. Almost like a thrill, but
So do you think that
I was going to say, you're from Chicago, and that was also the biggest center of organized crime during Prohibition with Al Capone all of that, organized crime really got its foothold during the Prohibition years.
And that's something we're taught about in vast detail.
And that's been backed up historically. Prohibition didn't work.
It was a huge
And
failure.
alcohol is one of the most addictive substances today. That's one of the most major.
It's addictive to certain people a lot
Yeah,
more.
so-
Like
So
you
is
said,
nicotine, which is also another legal
you
drug.
have,
That's
people nowadays have a,
Justin, can you like go finish?
have a large resistance to it.
Yes, he has something
Native
to say
Americans.
over there.
I think John has something to say.
Well, do you think that okay? Do you think that legalizing marijuana and taxing it would benefit the community in bringing home that the taxing in the communities for marijuana and using it to improve the community will help it? If so, what will be the way that you would improve upon it?
This is a question for me personally, so basically asking if we did legalize it and tax it and use the revenue from it to go towards rebuilding communities in a better way, is what you're asking me, how would we go about doing that?
Yeah, I feel that the drug war is just taking money from the community and giving it to large corporation, the prison industrial complex.
And also, I think drug war is also kind of classist and racist, considering that it's the young
Well,
guys from
that's true.
Chicago are the ones who get
Police
busted.
identify hot zones where
Right.
drugs are trafficked mostly, and because they focus on certain areas within cities, they end up.
And then you get people like Justin Bieber, for example, who, if he were a poor Latino kid who just wants to work from Mexico, he'd be deported. But instead, since he's an international rock star,
But, yeah, you're absolutely 100%. Those hotspots that they have, those areas that they know, okay, this is where the largest amount of trafficking happens. These are going to be our areas for the largest busts. We're going to actually do some good here. We're going to hurt the profiters of these drugs. It really doesn't help as much as they think, because there are innocents there too. I mean, that's basically the same as you have a line of kids. You turn their back to them and one of them throws a rock at you. You turn them back around, they all hide their hand. Which kid are you going to prosecute? You have the innocent ones intermingled just as well as the ones who are guilty. And you can't do anything without hitting the ones that are there in the crossfire. That's why they know a lot of these people who sell these drugs, actually, despite the fact that there is this heavy stereotype of them being illiterate morons, for lack of a better word, they know the system of the United States and our government and our rules very well. They can find the holes, exploit them to their benefit, so they know that they are practically untouchable. Then you have the ladders, and I can't exactly go over the how the structure of gangs and crime lords are set up, because they all vary very much so between them. So you have, I'm a big boss here, and I have you guys all doing the groundwork for me. If you guys aren't getting busted, your family members are, the people within your neighborhood that have no sort of connection to you just because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're within that hotspot, and I'm getting away scot-free, and I'm still making a profit. I'm still turning a profit up, so
Justin?
how's that really gonna help?
I was gonna say, what, you know, Al Capone actually did get busted for, not for,
Tax evasion.
yep, that's what they get most of the big drug dealers actually on, not, but yeah, it's like, why risk yourself when you can find a bunch of, nothing children to do it for you?
Mm-hmm. Find a patsy, know the kids in your neighborhoods, train them from an early age, they'll get stuff done for you.
Going back to John's question, I think that legalizing drugs and the revenue that would come from that could be invested in things such as rehab facilities, or not even so much rehab, but just the education for the next generation to know that these drugs are harmful, and that although you have the freedom to make that choice if you wish, it's not a beneficial choice for you.
So it's treat more like smoking alcohol.
I would
Yeah,
treat all
because-
drugs the same as
I was
alcohol.
gonna say.
Yeah, because that was still considered bad for you. And in fact, it still has plenty of negative effects, but people still indulge in it like crazy, despite the fact that they could kill their livers, their brain cells, anything. I mean, why is it as bad as the next drug?
Well, alcohol and drugs, it seems, political parties have very large investments in those. I guess the one thing I'd be worried about, like with legalizing drugs, would be, I mean, if the government's making this much money off, would that influence candidates to, say, promote the usage as opposed to,
I think
I mean,
there's already some sort of rebel culture where drug use is okay. I mean, personally, I wouldn't date anyone on drugs. I have a personal thing against it. But I'm not going to outwardly say what you're doing is wrong. I think my biggest problem with the war on drugs is not only the lack of investment in education. What was that?
Did you, we're gonna answer my question though?
I think that's the problem. What's your question again? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that alcohol and tobacco,
I don't-
there's, and even prescription drugs, there's a considerable, I mean, look at the pharmaceutical lobby, the tobacco, and how much clout would all this carry?
That's another word. That's something that I don't think I can answer.
I'm
But
saying.
I'm just looking at,
But
if
there
we
are,
look at
like,
Colorado.
there are candidates that are, that are like, so you have your massive tobacco companies and your massive, alcohol brand names, and they're lobbying just like any other factory. That's, let's just say 3M is lobbying for a Republican candidate, and they're dumping tons of garbage into the
What percentage
environment.
of the tax revenue from tobacco as opposed to, let's say, computers?
The revenue for that, like how much would go towards?
Because those are taxed
I think-
a whole
I
lot
think-
more. They
How
provide a
much,
whole lot.
how much revenue from the illegal drug sales, from the illegal drug companies would go to campaigns for lobbying? Is that what you're asking?
Legal drugs.
Yeah, so, how much money from a tobacco company revenue would go towards a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, look at pharmaceutical
Well,
companies
isn't that more
have
of
so
a
much clout now.
campaigning problem, and
Yeah.
a problem with our system of lobbying and campaign finance and drugs?
I think we need to close on that note. Before we close, does anyone have any last statements? We're going to go on the table, starting with you, Joe, then we'll end with me.
I think legalizing drugs would solve multiple problems. We'd save money from fighting the war. We'd earn money from the revenue from the drugs. Decrease population of prisons that are already overburdened. We could address social problems like the injustices that are occurring daily against people of color, and possibly getting some better rehab facilities for people who need it.
Sorry, Tim.
I would say that we solve a few problems and we cause a few problems. Whether one or the others, it's impossible to say for sure, but I guess the best you can do is that it may solve a few more problems than it creates. But it's important not to forget the problems it creates too.
Adrian?
I would say, as it is right now, we're wasting time, money, and lives, all very precious things, resources, and we're still not getting anywhere after decades of doing things a certain way. If anything, trying it, switching things around, seeing how it can work, and actually taking examples from other places who have tried it before and shown positive outcomes could be something that we could do. At least try it, because as things are right now, we're being wasteful and we're not getting anything done.
I'm going to close with a quote from a 2014 article from the Washington Post. From the Global Commission on Drug Policy, a UN organization. In their report, they write, after more than a half century of this punitive approach, there is now overwhelming evidence that the war on drugs, has not only failed to achieve its own objectives, but has also generated serious social and health problems. If the governments are genuinely concerned with safeguarding the safety, health, and human rights of their citizens, they must urgently adopt new approaches. That's my final thought. Thank you guys all for watching River Talk today. I hope you've been somewhat informed by this discussion. Thank you to John Schlund for being our camera person and asking a few questions. Thank you to Dr. Arlene for helping moderate and keeping an eye on things. Thank you to all my panelists. And thank you guys all for watching. We'll see you next week with a discussion on government privacy.